What is up, one and all? Welcome to a new video, a new thoughts on, where I give my thoughts on a specific game or game series. I haven't done one of these in a while. It's almost been a year since my first thoughts on, in which case I only made 4 within like a 2-month span afterward. But the point is, yeah, my only reason for not making these videos more often is I'm lazy. They take a lot of work and they take a lot of, commitment and effort. I have to be talking about something that I'm highly interested in usually. And Deus Ex is one of those games. I love this series. I absolutely love this series. I first played the precedent to Mankind Divided, which of course is the game we're talking about today. I first played that game, which is Deus Ex Human Revolution, last year over the summer. And man, did I have fun. I found the game to be extremely interesting, very intriguing, very relevant to a lot of today's issues, especially societally. We have a lot of race problems, and Deus Ex doesn't exactly address race, but it sort of has a ginormous analogy to that, which is this advanced movement of augmentations. Humans are basically augmenting them. Can't pronounce that word to save my life. Augmenting themselves to enhance their abilities beyond their human limits. What the Deus Ex series has always done best, and this has been a staple of the series, even to the game I'm talking about today, is the idea of approaching a scenario freely. Free approach, free choice in gameplay, essentially. There's this superstition with among Deus Ex fans that every other Deus Ex game is good, and that means every game in between is bad. So the first Deus Ex was awesome. The second one, not so much. That was Invisible War. The third one, Human Revolution, was great. And here we are in Mankind Divided, which, oh boy, it might be bad. Is it? Well, we're going to talk about that, because I have a very mixed response to that, because there are things that this game does very right, does extremely well, and then there are things that it does disappointingly bad. And we're going to address all of that right now. These are my thoughts on Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Now, before I really delve deep into this review, I must address a little bit of an elephant in the room, a little bit of a controversy, and that is this game's approach to microtransactions. This sparked a massive debate on the game's initial release, which was 2 months ago. I know I'm a little late, but still, whatever, I played it. When people say the DLC is one-time use, which was a huge thing that was going around, and I say going around because it's not entirely true. Yes, some of the DLC in this game is one-time use, but it makes complete sense why it's one-time use. That DLC, of course, or microtransactions, I should say, are these Praxis kits. Praxis kits in this game are upgrade points. They allow you to upgrade your augments and your abilities that allow you to progress through the game and show that you level up. You can actually buy those. And they are one-time use. Once you get a Praxis kit, it goes to your storage in game. You can transfer it to your inventory, and bam, you can't do that on any other character. Now, this gets a complete pass for me for a few reasons. One, Deus Ex probably gives you upgrade points more frequently than most of any RPGs I've ever played. Literally, you can, if you play this game like for a straight 3 hours, you may incur about 4 to 5 upgrade points, like Praxis kits. That's pretty freaking good, considering I didn't spend a penny on them. It's not like this game is, put in a certain way, so you don't need those upgrade points. Plus, like I'll hit on later in this review, Deus Ex is all about approaching gameplay from different approaches. So you really don't need those upgrade points unless you're absolutely desperate and your pockets are deep. As for the rest of the DLC, all of that is not one-time use. Whatever people say about all the DLC being one-time use is hockey. Now, the season pass for the game is pretty expensive, and the DLC for it is kind of meh so far. It's kind of short and not very enjoyable, and like I said, it's kind of expensive. And like I said, it also feels like it's cut off from the main game, which is kind of suspicious because the game's story is short enough as it is, so maybe there was even more content cut out to give DLC out. And I can never forgive something like that. I hate when developers cut content out of the game to only release it as DLC. And I wish it would stop, because they're ruining a good series. But all things considered, it's not actually that bothersome. And you could play the game and enjoy it without ever having to play that DLC. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on DLC microtransactions. Not actually that bad, to be honest. So, like I said, going into Mankind Divided, there was a lot of expectations because this is such a prolific series among probably what is, especially PC gamers. Continuing off of Human Revolution, which was almost like a re-sequel, or a re-prequel, if you will, a pre-sequel to Deus Ex, because it took the story 20 years back, so to the year 2025. This is Human Revolution we're talking about. Took the story back to 2025, where mankind is on the brink of a technological advancement. Society is kind of growing closer and closer together because of the advancement of technology, specifically, like I said earlier, augmentations. And this is a huge debate in the first game, and it ends in disaster. At the end of Human Revolution, spoiler alert, by the way, if you have not played Human Revolution, because this will directly spoil the ending. At the end of Human Revolution, an anti-aug activist named Hugh Darrow activates this malicious chip that all the augmented people have installed that makes them go crazy. Think the end of the movie Kingsman, where everyone just goes berserk. That's exactly what happens in Human Revolution, except millions of people are killed. It's one of the most devastating events to ever occur on Earth. Deus Ex: Mankind Divided is the aftermath of that. People are afraid of augmented individuals. They've seen what they can do. They've seen the life they can take. They've seen how powerless they are up against augmented people. And it's sort of beginning to mimic, I guess, segregation. I guess the most comparable way to put this is segregation in the United States in the 20s, 30s, and 40s with the Jim Crow laws and everything. That's kind of what is starting to happen in Mankind Divided. In fact, a mechanical apartheid has been approved. They build a city for augmented people called Rabia. It's a ton of stuff. This game is filled with lore. So if you like deep, extensive, well-thought-out lore in your games, you're going to love Deus Ex: Mankind Divided and probably the rest of the games. But Mankind Divided, more than the other games, I felt did a really good job at nailing its lore and its world and filling it with interesting stuff. That was an A+. Mankind Divided, you play as Adam Jensen. He was the main character in Human Revolution. He was a former cop who was badly injured in a terrorist attack on Seraph Industries, which was the lead company in making augmentations. And he himself received a lot of augmentations, which he never actually asked for, which is a meme. Just keep that in mind for all the meme lords out there who like memes. And his job as part of Seraph is to travel across the globe and try to figure out who conducted the terrorist attack. Adam Jensen blows up a facility called, oh god, what is it? Pangaea. He blows up a facility called Pangaea, which is where the augmented attack was initiated from. He almost dies, except he enters a coma for about 6 months. He wakes up, he does some stuff for a bit, and then he suddenly is with a global organization called Interpol, and more specifically a terrorist organization called Task Force 29, which are responsible for seeking out terroristic threats around the world. This is all amidst the whole sort of pandemic about augmented individuals. Adam Jensen himself is augmented, and so you play a very, very interesting position in the game where people trust you, people have to work with you because you have great abilities and you're very trustworthy and you're capable, but at the same time, a lot of people don't trust you and they fear you and they don't want to work with you because you are augmented. And that was a very awesome approach for the game to take. Unfortunately, it doesn't really pay off. Let's run through the story really quick in this game. I'm not going to spoil it, but I will give you the gist. When you get into the game, you are starting to root out some terroristic threats, like I said, and then eventually you stumble upon a conspiracy, a terrorist attack occurs. That is the sort of tipping point for the rest of the game, is who caused this terrorist bombing, who's behind it, who are they working with, what is their goal. That is the plot of this game. You're trying to figure out who is behind that bombing and what is their greater intention. And may I just say, this game has an excellent starting act. It's like any other Deus Ex game. In fact, it may just be my favorite opening to any of the Deus Ex games, and how it portrays the tragedy of what happened, and how everything has gone to shit, and how you have to stand tall in a shitty situation. And in the second act of this game, it goes completely off rails. You start to do your investigation for who is behind the bombing. And it leads to one lead, to another 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 lead. And after some point, you have fun pursuing those leads, and the investigation of those leads is very enjoyable. But the progression of those leads and where each lead goes gets more and more and more and more uninteresting, to the point where when you get to the supposed final act of the game, if you could even say this game has it, you feel an immense amount of disappointment and you don't feel like you've accomplished anything at all. And that is the biggest problem with this game, is its main story, is that It starts out excellently. It has a great setup and could lead to an awesome plot. But it tries to buy its time into what I presume is the consequence of a story that was cut short for the next game. Like I said, you could presume this game as a third act, but if you've played it, it really doesn't. You get to a point in the game where you think, okay, now we're gonna nail this home. I'm ready for that third act. Where'd it go? This game doesn't really have that third act. In fact, it ends. It just ends on this random mission, and then you get this ending cutscene that basically alludes to you finishing the story in the sequel. It's almost like if you've seen The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1, for those of you who've seen those movies, how the first movie, Part 1, just feels like a really elongated build-up for the second, and the second is much better. That's what this is. This is that really long, unnecessary build-up for what will probably be a much more enjoyable next game. Now, all that could have been prevented if they squeezed that story into this game. I don't know what Square Enix's intentions are. Do they want to make this a trilogy? Do they want to make another game? You know, do they want to make another game after that? Do they want to make this a saga? And as I said earlier, the world is filled with lots of interesting lore and these organizations and all these events that are referenced. Heck, almost every house you go into the game has a giant TV with the news playing. And I actually legitimately sit down and watch the news. The cutscenes in this game are fantastic. The amount of attention to detail it plays in setting up these story missions are brilliant. But it's all meaningless because the story doesn't have a lot to say, nor does it touch very much on the actual issues in the world. And all that lore feels like it's going to waste because what you're doing is nowhere near as interesting as what's happening in the world around you. So, once again, makes the story feel extremely pointless. You don't feel like you've accomplished anything by the end. And like I said, it is the worst thing about this game, and it brings it down a lot. But now we're going to take a 180 with this game, because the story, as bad as the story was, the gameplay, I'm so glad to say, was eons better. Deus Ex is a shooter, but it can also be a stealth game, and it has RPG mechanics. In fact, I think a lot of people actually play this more as a stealth game, in which case, it is a brilliant stealth game. Every minor little inconvenience I think I've ever had in a stealth game has been completely addressed in this game. You know, there's certain things, like when you're switching cover, you can... It will show you, too. It will show you exactly where you want to go. You can go over barriers, across barriers, behind barriers. Anywhere you want to go, take cover, you can take cover. And it shows you exactly where you want to go. To that extent, the controls in this game are... excellent. I almost had no issues with the controls. In fact, you can rebind a lot of them in the actual game. So you have your abilities, your augmentations, which are upgrades you get throughout the game. You can bind those to certain keys, and you can pick them out and place them wherever you wish. The quick inventory menu actually allows you to access your entire inventory very, very precisely, which is something good because the quick inventory menu in other games only lets you access select items out of your inventory. One of the other issues I had with stealth in Deus Ex Human Revolution was that while it was an extremely rewarding playstyle, you couldn't have a lot of fun with stealth. You know, say in Dishonored, you could have a ton of fun with stealth because you can blink, you can, you know, send down whirlwinds and different stuff upon enemies. But in Mankind Divided, they did so much stuff to make sure that stealth players are also having a very, very fun and varied experience. A lot of new abilities have been introduced that enhance your stealth experience. A lot of previous abilities that only had a certain function. For example, Typhoon, which was like a 360 arc of like explosive pellets, now can shoot a 360 arc of sleep pellets, so you can knock out all the enemies around you instead of just exploding. And that also, you know, you can upgrade that a certain way depending on your playstyle. You also have a ton of these new augmentations, which are all fantastic. You basically have the blink from Dishonored. You have a it's basically an ability that lets you stun multiple enemies at once. That pulls out from your arm. And you can play the whole game non-lethally as well, which is something you were not able to do so well in Human Revolution. Much of the game you could play non-lethally, except for the boss fights. You had to kill bosses. You would still get your achievement for being a pacifist, minus the bosses you had to kill. But in Mankind Divided, you can play the whole game without ever killing anybody. And I have an achievement to prove it. Heck, I will show it in the video right now. Check that out. I earned that on my first playthrough. Made sure I played through the whole game without killing anybody. It was very, very difficult. In that regard, I gotta say the boss fights in the campaign and in the game itself are extremely well designed. You know, think on Mr. Freeze levels in Arkham, how you have to keep changing your strategy. There are a couple bosses in this game that are definitely like that. And once again, in true Deus Ex fashion, there are many ways to approach those bosses. You know, you don't necessarily say your hacking isn't upgraded so much. You could, you know, take advantage of stealth. You could take advantage of your other abilities that let you travel around quicker. Use those to, you know, manipulate the environment. Or say you don't have any of that. Say you just have your guns. Well, guess what? You have a stun gun. You can get close to him. You can knock him out. So many options with the stealth. Now, some people are probably going, okay, it's a great stealth game, but isn't it primarily a shooter? Yes, it is definitely a shooter, and to that regard, the shooting is excellent. There was a little bit of a problem in Human Revolution. The guns didn't feel very weighty. They didn't feel very snappy. They felt kind of like these things you were dragging around, and when you try to shoot enemies, it felt like you were just, you know, holding down a button to unload bullets into them and bam, they're dead. Like, it's almost like an art, making shooting feel compelling in gaming. I might sound crazy right now, but it's true. There are games that have to perfect their shooting. They have to make it feel satisfying. They have to make it feel rewarding when you kill someone. And they don't have to they want to make it feel like you're actually doing it. Mankind Divided, they did one hell of a job trying to fix that feeling from Human Revolution. They definitely made the shooting far more snappier. Coming out of cover is like instant when you have a gun or you're shooting at an enemy. There's a lot of weapons as well, and most of the weapons, once again, going back to that non-lethal approach I was talking about, most of the weapons also have EMP ammo, which once again, great way to make stealth even more fun for you know, people who are fans of the non-lethal approach or the stealth approach. Now a lot of those weapons that only, you know, aggressive players could use before can now be used by stealth players with the right ammo, of course. Now, don't take it directly from me, because I played this game on the hardest difficulty. I try to play all these games on the hardest difficulty. But the AI in this game can be pretty challenging, and they can be pretty brutal. You know, this is the type of AI that, if you're hiding behind cover, they don't just sit and wait for you to pop up, and then they can shoot you from whatever far off distance they are. Of course, they inevitably get killed, because they don't move at all. No, the AI in Mankind Divided tends to move a lot. And if they're a big and empowering enemy, they tend to move towards you at a very steady rate to the point where they're right on top of you. And it can be scary, and it can be super fun when you take out those enemies. Something they did absolutely excellent on. But a big part of the reason all that stealth and all that shooting and all these aggressive and non-lethal approaches work is because the level design in this game is amazing. This is a series that's about having multiple approaches to a situation. That doesn't mean you need to get from point A to B, and that means, you know, either you take this guy out non-lethally or you take him out lethally, and then bam, you're at B. No, not always like that. Sometimes it means going through an air vent, crawling all the way through a shaft, hacking a computer, turning off cameras so you can sneak past a certain area, and then going inside. It's the type of level design that rewards the, I guess, the opportunist gamer, the gamer who takes advantage of the opportunities in the level environment. And while Deus Ex this game at least is mainly composed of these linear level segments and its giant open world, the way all of those are connected and the way those, you know, the way you progress those levels is awesome. You know, especially given the really complex levels. There's one point in the game you go to Gollum, which is a ghetto for augmented people, and it has all these multiple levels. And there's a point in the game where you need to get to the top level, and there's actually 3 or 4 different ways to get there. I got there in one way, and I thought it was the only way to get up there, but of course, always in Deus Ex fashion, I soon discovered 2 other ways that I could have gotten up there, and I felt stupid because I realized, oh my gosh, there's so many other approaches I could have taken that weren't nearly as obvious, but if I had just, you know, been patient and observed my environment at the time, I could have totally taken those routes. And almost every scenario in Deus Ex is like that. There's not one scenario in this game that I can imagine or even think of or recall from my time playing the game where there's only one approach to something. There's multiple approaches. Always. Always, always, always. Even in the open world, which is huge, but very meticulously designed. Everything connects. There's a sewer, an underground sewer that kind of connects all the areas. It's a very good way of getting around, especially when at one point you go to your little open world Prague and the city's under lockdown. On that note, the massive open world you have in this game is Prague. And when I say massive, it's not massive in the sense that it's ginormous like GTA or Witcher, but massive in the sense that every inch of the world is rich with detail. It is loaded with opportunities. And sometimes the side quests will take you along those opportunities. Sometimes they'll take you through certain rooms or environments that you never would normally get to go to unless you're doing that quest. But there's a lot of rooms that the side quests don't take you to. In Adam Jensen's apartment complex, which is awesome. The way it's designed is really cool. You go down, you drop down a level, and there's another apartment right there that you open it up right away, and the doorbell is like a cat meowing. You go inside, there's cat posters everywhere. It's kind of funny, but the owner's not home. Then you read through the owner's emails, you learn about how they're adopting more cats. It's kind of funny. There's another apartment in that same complex where there was a giant amalgamated mechanical altar to the machine god, which is essentially this augmented god who people choose to believe in because they feel like it endows them with the rights that most people don't, most people deny them of. And the environment was cluttered with mechanical junk. Seriously, talking about the environments in this game will not do it justice until you play the game, because the environments in this game are rich, very, very rich, to the point where I kind of want to see Eidos Montreal make a Fallout game, because they load the environments of this game with such meticulous detail, to the point where you'll walk into a room and you'll see scraps of paper on the floor, sticky notes. You'll see, laundry directions, or you'll see what they need to get at the grocery store pinned to a wall. You'll see a calendar. You'll see the food they're making on the stove. You'll see a box with a half-eaten cheeseburger in it. And the thing is, if you're playing this game on Ultra on the PC, there's a lot of these fine letters and details you can read on a lot of these items, like those sticky notes or those letters or anything. You can actually read that stuff. Crazy. These are realistic environments invented to be as realistic as they can possibly be. But as I was saying, the open world is filled with little areas that reward players who are investigative and go there the side quests don't tell you to. And then there are the environments that the side quests do tell you to go to. And that brings me to the side quests. And might I just say, the side quests in this game are better than the story. Which I guess isn't a huge shock, considering, like I said, the story is really disappointing, and it feels really cut short for the next game, which really hurts the story that this game has. But the side quests alone, each and every one of them, I feel is better than the main story, and actually focuses on the stuff that I was most interested in coming into this game, and that was the whole segregation between augmented people and naturals. There's one quest where you have to help a detective find out who murdered an augmented woman in the streets. He thinks it's the augmented husband of the wife, mainly because he's augmented. But you do some investigating and you come across a politician who you think might be capable of it, and you might actually side with him because you don't want to throw augmented people under the bus. And the road this quest takes you on is exciting and it's just fun. That choice, that idea of choice that is inherent in the gameplay and in the stories of previous Deus Ex games exists in those side quests. They're like micro stories of the Deus Ex universe, and might I just say, they're the best side quests I've played in a game since The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. On that note, I think that wraps up everything that I wanted to touch on with Mankind Divided. Yeah, this is a great game, all things considered. The story is jank, to put it plainly. Yeah, it's cut short. It doesn't allow you to explore any of that lore or those topics that you're interested in coming into this game. The side quests do that, but the story should have been the one to do that, considering this is the thread that connects all the games together. But yeah, like I said, this game has some of the best level design, has some of the best controls, has some of the best side quests, has some of the best gameplay mechanics in general of any game I've played this year, even over, I don't know, say Doom or I don't know. There's a lot of games that have come out this year that are comparable, but man, does this game do its gameplay well, and man, does it do its story no justice whatsoever. That is the mixed bag. That is Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Like I said, I suggest you get it alone for its gameplay, not so much for its story. If I were to give this game a final rating, it would be an 8 out of 10. Those 2 points I took off are purely for the story. So yeah, guys, if you've played Deus Ex Mankind Divided, tell me in the comments below. If not, have I piqued your interest in the game? Have I turned you away from the game because maybe you want games with better story, not so much you don't care about the gameplay? What are your thoughts? Did you enjoy this Thoughts On? And do you want to see more? And if so, what game do you want me to talk about next? It can be any game coming out this fall. Let me know in the comments below what you want me to do next. And stay tuned for all my Let's Plays coming up here on the channel. Thank you all for watching one last time, and I'll be seeing you all later. Peace.